welcome back to another video on KoreKara. It's been a while, but I'm definitely gonna go back to making videos on here. I'll give an update later in the video, but today I want to talk about how I would learn Japanese if I had to start over again. In the beginning, I definitely struggled a lot with not making progress, trying to find the best methods, and overall just feeling unsatisfied in my own ability. Looking back, there were a few specific things and also one change that I made that really accelerated my progress and got me through the rough patches of not making progress with the language. And so that's what I'm going to share in this video. And they are, number one, how I would approach the basics, which includes hiragana, katakana, and also kanji. And number two, how and when to talk to native speakers. Number three, how to actually immerse for fluency. And number four, the simple mindset shift that really accelerated my progress. For some context, I was able to study Japanese and get to a fluent level in a year, and I passed the N1. And since then, I've interviewed nearly 100 of the top Japanese speakers on the internet that I could find. And so the advice here is based on my personal experience and also what I learned from interviewing these elite Japanese learners. But before I get into the step-by-step process, first I want to share a paradigm shift that I had when I first started learning Japanese. Learning a language is simultaneously going to be the hardest thing that you can do and also the easiest thing that you can do. And that's because learning a language is a natural process in your subconscious. In the book, The Language Instinct, the linguist Steven Pinker actually argues that language is something instinctual, programmed into every human's DNA. You can't force your brain to acquire a language. You can only expose yourself to the language and hope that it does acquire it. So first, I would allocate roughly 3 months to go through the basics, and then 3 months of immersion to get to 80% comprehension in some specific domains, and then another 6 months to get to a level of conversational fluency and basic fluency where you can just watch the shows that you like and have conversations with most people. Now let's get into the first phase. So how I would approach the basics, including hiragana, katakana, and kanji. This is where most people fail. I often see learners fall into the trap of grinding through beginner textbooks for multiple years. And if I were starting out again, I would give myself an exact deadline of when I would be done with beginner material. And after that, I would just stop completely watching all beginner content because it's really easy to fall in the trap where you feel comfortable in the way that you're studying the language. You need to constantly step outside your comfort zone if you want to make progress with Japanese. Learning hiragana and katakana should not take more than a week. And you don't even need to get to the point where you can recall and write every single one of them. You should just get to the point where you can roughly remember 90% of them and be able to pronounce them. With kanji, this is something that a lot of people are intimidated by, but you should just learn them as you go. Don't even try to spend time to figure out how to write kanji. Doing that would just slow you down. Every Japanese kid learns fluent Japanese and they're speaking for like 6 or 7 years before they learn any kanji in elementary school. So you should never have kanji be the reason that you're not making progress with the language. Since you would be going through a beginner textbook, you can just start with the basic kanji, learn what the radicals mean, and then learn the kanji in context of different words. Don't even worry about jumping into emerging content right now. You can even just continue to watch anime with English subtitles, because if you jump into emerging content right now without any subtitles, you're going to be too lost, and it's probably going to demotivate you because then you aren't able to watch the shows that you actually want to watch. I'll explain how to actually immerse in the next section, but as for basic grammar, find a beginner textbook. I would recommend Genki 1 and Genki 2. These are super well laid out books written by college professors, and they have really clear explanations of how the grammar patterns work, how to formulate basic sentences, and also just have the most common 200 to 500 words that you should learn. These books are also super popular, so if there's any section that you don't understand, you can easily just look it up on YouTube and there's somebody that's going to explain it. Like you can look up Tokini Andy Genki and he has like almost all the explanations for all the chapters. Okay, so now that you've gone through the basics, now we move on to phase 2, which is to talk to native speakers. After you've gone through Genki 1 and Genki 2, you should be able to introduce yourself and have basic conversations based on the exercises and grammar patterns that you learned. Your real weakness now will be listening. Real Japanese sounds very different than what you heard in the textbook and also what you hear in anime. But you want to start talking to natives so that you're priming your brain to begin to acquire the language. You'll force your subconscious to try and figure out more patterns in the background. Talking to natives too is also a high stakes situation because you can't skip over sentences that you don't understand. You have to figure them out from context or ask them to explain it in Japanese. This is a super crucial skill that will make understanding Japanese and acquiring the language way faster and way easier. When you talk to natives for the first time, you're probably going to feel some sort of anxiety or even embarrassment when you make mistakes. And this is actually really good for learning because once you're corrected, you'll probably never make that mistake ever again, just because of how embarrassing or shocking that experience was. Studies have shown that being in a highly anxious state can also increase your brain plasticity, which will absolutely help with acquiring the language. And it's important to emphasize you cannot get this level of immersion just by watching content on TV or through a computer. This is the true form of active immersion because you cannot zone out. You cannot skip over something. You can't even look up words. You just have to ask the person to explain to you. Okay, now you're probably thinking, there's no Japanese people around me. How can I find Japanese people to talk to? So first, if you're really busy and you want to just stay at home, what you can do is use a service like italki or HelloTalk to meet Japanese people. With italki, you can just book a call with a Japanese speaker and just practice speaking Japanese. And with HelloTalk, it's more of a social network that you can meet Japanese people online and talk to them. If you're in college, your school probably has some Japanese club and you can join that. That's what I did when I was in college. But you can also look at meetup.com for local language exchange meetups, which I've also gone to a number of times before. Real life interaction is going to be better than online because when you're actually hanging with somebody, you're going to see how the language is used in a variety of situations, like how to ask for the toilet or how to express excitement or even just how to describe the food that you just ate. With online calls, it's a little bit harder because you're kind of just confined to sitting there. So usually these become more philosophical discussions about a certain topic, which can be good or bad. But even with phase 1 and phase 2, there's still one more phase to get to a truly fluent level. The problem with just talking to natives is that you'll be limited to the Japanese that you know, and Japanese people will feel hesitant to talk to you in a more advanced level and use more advanced words because they might feel like you might not understand them. So while it's super important to continue to talk to natives, the next thing that you need to do is to immerse for fluency. And let me explain how. First, you need to find the content that you like to watch and double down on that. If you like anime, watch 2 times more anime. If you like YouTube vlogs, watch double the amount of vlogs. But the key is to turn off the English subtitles and to turn on the Japanese subtitles. This is like training in a gym, whereas talking to natives in real life is actually fighting in a match. When you watch content, you're gonna come across tons and tons of words that you don't know. Just try to figure out what they mean from context. You aren't going to be able to pause and look stuff up when you're just really using the language in real life. And if you really can't figure it out, then look it up and then copy down the word and sentence into a master list. And make sure to only add it to your master list if you understood the sentence after looking up the word. I also recommend a dictionary on your phone. It's called Japanese. It's a Japanese to English dictionary, but it has one of the biggest library of words because it also includes slang words in Japanese. But with that app, you can easily create a list and add words to it as you look them up. If you watch anime or Japanese shows on Netflix, then also install the Chrome extension Language Reactor. It'll show both the Japanese and English subtitles, but the English subtitles is blurred on default, so it'll only show the translation when you hover over it. But with this workflow, what I would do is I would add all the words I don't know to a list along with the sentence. And then when the list got big enough, I would go and make a bunch of Anki cards for the whole week or month. If you don't want to use Anki, that's totally fine, but you still need to review the words somehow that you're coming across. But with Anki specifically, you'll be so good at reading kanji, which is also a superpower because you'll get to the point where you can just look at a word that you don't know and immediately understand it based on the kanji. One thing that I did was I rewatched a lot of my favorite shows in Japanese subtitles, and that was super helpful because I already understood what everybody was saying even without the subtitles. The reason why this daily immersion is super important is that it keeps your brain active about actually acquiring the language. And with language, the most efficient way to acquire it is to actually make the language part of your life. So I did things like changing my phone and computer to Japanese so that I was constantly reading something in Japanese. And throughout the day, I would make sure to only listen to Japanese podcasts, Japanese music, and watch Japanese videos on YouTube. And I would definitely recommend doing that if you want to make progress in Japanese as fast as possible. Without this daily immersion, you won't have enough to bring to the table when you actually talk to Japanese people, because you'll only be able to use the Japanese that you already know, and you'll fall into these comfortable patterns of speaking. When you immerse, you'll also find better ways of expressing a certain idea, and then you can use that in real conversation. Like I said earlier, immersion through content is like training, and speaking to natives is like fighting. You absolutely need to do both in order to improve. You also don't want to make flashcards or immersion a crutch, because you'll get to the point where it's really comfortable to just watch content and learn words passively, but you have to understand that you only grow when you put yourself outside of your comfort zone. But yeah, so those are the 3 phases. But there's one more thing that I want to share, which is the simple action that really accelerated my fluency. And that was really to just commit to learning Japanese. Like, really commit and make Japanese a part of your identity. In order for you to acquire the language, your subconscious must believe that it's an important part of your identity. Unlike learning something like math or science, you can't really just show up to a class and learn it. The actual acquisition of the language is a subconscious process. And it's the difference between translating in your head or just speaking off the cuff without thinking at all. You really have to commit to the language and visualize yourself being fluent in it. If you're just dabbling here or there and you're just doing it on the side, you probably will just give up and not make progress. But once you commit, it doesn't really matter how fast your progress is because you know you're not going to stop. Yeah, that's what I would do if I was starting from zero and wanted to learn Japanese in a year again. I definitely made a lot of mistakes when I first started out, but I was still able to make those changes and get to the point where I passed the JLPT N1 in about a year. All right, what's up guys? Hope you guys learned Japanese, so make sure to subscribe if you aren't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.